Fears of travel chaos over Lunar New Year as pilots at Taiwan's second largest airline announce a strike. Beefing up Taiwan's defenses, the country's first one-year recruits start their training. A nuclear reaction? Anti-nuclear campaigners go head-to-head with Taiwan's largest opposition party. Plus, reviving a dying art. Masters of Taiwan's traditional arts look to pass on their knowledge before it's too late. Hello and welcome to TaiwanPlus News. I'm Eric Gao. In breaking news, pilots from EVA Airways, one of Taiwan's major airlines, have announced that they will strike during the critical Lunar New Year holiday period. Our reporter Joyce Tseng is outside EVA headquarters here in Taipei. Joyce, what's the latest?
Hi, Eric. A major development here for travelers. Pilots from Taiwan's second largest airline have just announced that they will go on strike during this critical travel period if their demands for better pay and more manpower aren't met. Now, Lunar New Year, that's an important time for travelers not just to and from Taiwan, but in and around the region as people try to fly home to spend the holidays with their families. So a strike by EVA would certainly disrupt this major travel season. Eric?
Now, Joyce, this is a huge move by the union. Did we see it coming?
Well, Eric, this has been brewing for months. There's been back and forth between a whole union of pilots across airlines and their companies. Now, some, including EVA, have already offered hiked up bonuses, but pilots say this is not enough. In the case of EVA, they want to see more effort to train local talent instead of just hiring foreign pilots. So the threat of a strike has been looming. They secured the right to strike earlier this week after a months-long union-wide vote. But what we're learning tonight is that the union will make good on that threat. And travelers may be facing quite a chaotic time during what's already one of the busiest travel seasons. Back to you, Eric.
Thank you, Joyce. That was Joyce Tseng reporting from outside EVA headquarters in Taipei. We will be bringing you more as this story develops. Taiwan's first batch of one-year conscripts have entered service, signaling a new era for the country's defense. And as Jaime Okan reports, it's going to be the quality, not the quantity of their training that matters.
Reporting for duty. These young men in Taiwan's city of Taichung are the very first to enter the country's extended one-year military service, and that starts with a new look. For many here, it's mixed emotions.
刚开始接到兵单，到后来就是中间还是会多少有一点点小紧张，那心情有点忐忑。但是来到神宫岭之后，就是发现这边真的都很井然有序，然后长官也没有说像之前听前辈说的这么恐怖。
Under Taiwanese law, all men from 18 to 36 must serve 1 year in the military. That was extended from 4 months by President Tsai Ing-wen at the end of 2022, partly due to increasing military threat from China. Beijing continues to threaten the use of force to take over Taiwan, which it claims as part of its territory. And so officials here have pushed for military reform and revamped training to better prepare for a potential conflict.
其实针对4个月的军事训练役跟现在我们要接的1年的义务役，在课程上面安排，我们有在提供更多的一个比较专业的一个领域，包含了进阶战斗，还有快反射击，还有战伤救护，这些都纳入我们这个8周新式的课表里面去实施授课。
China boasts one of the largest militaries in the world, with over 2 million active personnel, dwarfing Taiwan's roughly 170,000 strong military. But Taiwan has over 1.6 million reservists, compared to China's 500,000. And it's these people Taiwan is relying on to bridge the gap in wartime. That's why there's now renewed focus on military training and tactics.
Conscripts in general are going to be lower quality than, say, professional volunteers that stick in the military for multiple years or even their whole careers and develop those skills. So it's not necessarily a matter of equaling that quality, but getting a large number of people the sort of basic prerequisite skills that they can bring and supplement that force.
This one-year conscription period will see soldiers get more hands-on training with weapons and receive better pay than the 4-month program. Some conscripts said the old training was inadequate, even going as far as to describe it as a summer camp. The military says it's taken inspiration from countries like the U.S. to improve its training programs and ensure its soldiers are making the most of their time. Whether they have succeeded will be crucial in determining the outcome of the new one-year program.
If you are tripling the length of conscription from 4 months to 1 year, and those conscripts still view it as a waste of time and a waste of 1 year of their lives, they're going to lose respect for Taiwan's military, and that will go down, in the eyes of Taiwan society, and that's a very unhealthy dynamic.
As these men get settled into their new home, the military is hoping they'll leave in a year's time, prepared for any future threats to Taiwan's security. And if all goes to plan, Taiwan won't just have more soldiers, but a higher quality military. Joseph Wu and Jaime Okan in Taichung for TaiwanPlus.
A U.S. Navy destroyer has sailed through the Taiwan Strait. The USS John Finn passed through on Wednesday on a freedom of navigation mission. The U.S. 7th Fleet says the vessel did not enter the territorial waters of any country. It also said that no country should be coerced into giving up its rights and freedoms. Taiwan's main opposition party is trying to push through a U-turn on the country's nuclear energy policy, and that's provoked a backlash from environmentalists. Sally Jensen explains.
Weeks after Taiwan's national elections, an old controversy is once again fueling political division, as the largest opposition party makes a bid to change the country's course on nuclear energy. The Kuomintang or KMT will have a slight majority in the legislature come May. The party wants to do away with a 5-year application window for starting up the country's shuttered nuclear reactors. The party's former presidential candidate and current mayor of New Taipei City, Hou Youyi, says restarting reactors should be based on safety standards, not time considerations.
我们希望大家都有共识，我们都希望能够在核安安全为底下，不断的逐步的推动，让整个全国的供电 The
Nuclear Safety Commission requires operators to apply for a new license 5 years before a reactor's service life reaches 40 years. Currently, Taiwan has 4 nuclear power plants. 2 have been decommissioned, 1 was never completed, and 1 remains running, providing 6% of the country's electricity. Taiwan imports most of its energy, and the KMT wants to raise the country's energy security and self-sufficiency by using more nuclear power. They say this would also help Taiwan meet international green energy commitments. That would be an about-turn from the government's current policy. The ruling Democratic Progressive Party plans to end nuclear power in the country for good from next year. It cites safety concerns over nuclear waste management as one reason for the 5-year application review period, which they say would ensure more robust nuclear safety checks.
缩短审查的时间是不是会造成这个在安全问题上面的漏洞跟放水？国民党都应该要回答，而不是像现在这种不负责任的态度去回避。
While the issue is already creating friction in the legislature, some academics say having a fixed review period to extend the service life of reactors isn't needed.
国外也有2年就完成审查的案例啊，就看你管制机关到底需要多长的时间。这5年只是一个数字上面的一个限制啊，并不是真的技术上面的一个限制。
The issue of nuclear power remains highly sensitive among the public, and with the ruling party no longer holding the legislative majority, the outlook for Taiwan's most controversial form of energy will continue to fuel debate. Chris Ma and Sally Jensen for TaiwanPlus.
The Taiwan People's Party is about to make a big decision. It has the power to decide who will be the next leader of the legislature. But as Harrell Hughes reports, the party is keeping its plans secret.
The Taiwan People's Party has just 8 legislative seats. But in the coming session, it will be the kingmaker. With neither of its bigger rival parties having a majority, the TPP's votes will decide who will be the legislative speaker. The speaker's roles include overseeing the legislative agenda and serving as a tiebreaker, a job that could well be important in this deeply split chamber. The party will announce who it will back on Friday, just 6 days before the vote. The opposition Kuomintang is actively courting TPP support for its candidate Han Kuo-yu. The Kuomintang says it agrees with the Taiwan People's Party's aims of reforming the legislature, even putting forward its own related proposals. It argues the Taiwan People's Party should back Han, giving this alignment of values.
同时，我相信也很清楚地回应了包含民众党的朋友共同对国会改革的一些想法，都在昨天我们表达的5大改革方案当中非常清楚地展现出来。
But if the Taiwan People's Party has a preference, it's keeping it under wraps. It could also go for the ruling Democratic Progressive Party's candidate, Ing-wen. There's even speculation the party could split its vote, backing Han for Speaker, but also supporting Ing-wen for Deputy Speaker. The party has dismissed these rumors and asserted its independence. Being a third force beholden to neither establishment party is a big part of its brand.
不要以讹传讹，我们的立场很清楚，就是台湾民众党会有自己的主体性，也会做出自己的决定。
Nothing can happen in the legislature without a speaker in charge. And the role of speaker has grown beyond the legislative in recent years, making the choice even more consequential.
So recently, the legislature has taken on something of a diplomatic role. And of course, as the head of the legislature, what we call the legislative speaker plays this diplomatic role in greeting these overseas delegations.
Overseer, power broker, diplomat. The speaker is an important figure. So when the vote takes place February 1st, all eyes will be on the Taiwan People's Party and who it crowns. James Lin, John Van Trieste, and Harrell Hughes for TaiwanPlus.
A couple in New Taipei is suing caregivers at a daycare where their infant son suffocated. John Van Trieste has this report.
In New Taipei, police lead 3 daycare workers away. They're facing a lawsuit and possible prosecution. An 11-month-old boy has died on their watch, suffocating while wearing a mask meant to protect him from illness. His parents have created a timeline of what they believe happened. They say he began to cry with the mask on, making it stick to his face and leaving him unable to breathe. Now they're suing for negligence, saying it took staff 20 minutes to notice he'd stopped breathing.
当时的情况下，已经口罩全湿了，都吸住了，他就没办法自救吗？那你为什么要强迫他戴吗？你没有办法一直顾着他，你为什么要做这个呢？
好不容易等了8、9年，终于来了这个小孩。那我没想到说，就是好不容易来了这个小孩之后，就这样子跟我们相处11个月，这样就走了。
The daycare has defended its mask policy.
因为最近的那个疫情的感染就是一些病毒感染太严重了。那我们基于是在保护孩子的健康，避免交叉感染之下，才会有这样的一个动作啦。
The Centers for Disease Control says this isn't something it requires. Instead, daycares are free to set their own mask policies. But it says it doesn't recommend masks for children under 2.
从去年的3月6号之后，随着校园口罩的解禁，就已经没有再实施托婴中心的口罩令。
Meanwhile, the new Taipei city government says it will launch a prosecution if medical examiners and courts find evidence of wrongdoing. John Su and John Van Trieste for TaiwanPlus.
Coming up after the break, is Taiwan in danger of losing another diplomatic ally? We speak to an expert about the chances.
For more stories from Taiwan and around the world, download the TaiwanPlus app.
你经历过人生的话，你发现说，我们大部分都是爱美的。
我自己少遇见一朵花，我可能就不是这个样子。
开始思考什么叫做一个本土性，
大声的唱出来说我是台湾人。
Welcome back. You're watching TaiwanPlus News. At least 39 people have died in a fire in Jiangxi province in eastern China. People can be seen jumping out the windows of a shop in Xinyu City after a blaze broke out in the shop's basement. 9 others were hurt. China's President Xi Jinping has demanded efforts to curb similar incidents after a string of deadly fires in the country. Moscow is accusing Kyiv of shooting down a Russian transport plane carrying Ukrainian prisoners of war. The crash near the two countries' border killed 74 people, including 65 Ukrainian POWs, 6 crew members, and 3 others. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has called for clarity around the incident, and said the country will push for an internal investigation.
З почуттями рідних та з емоціями нашого суспільства. Потрібно встановити усі чіткі факти, настільки, наскільки це можливо. Враховуючи, що падіння літака сталося на російській території поза нашим контролем. Факти – це головне слово зараз. Заслухав головкома та Генштаб по застосуванню повітряних сил.
6 people have died in a massive gas explosion in Mongolia. The blaze started from a truck carrying 60 tons of liquefied natural gas and went on to engulf several nearby buildings, including a residential property in the country's capital, Ulaanbaatar. 600 firefighters battled the blaze, 3 of them losing their lives. The Pacific island nation of Tuvalu heads to the polls on Friday. It's one of Taiwan's few remaining diplomatic allies. And after Tuvalu's neighbor Nauru cut ties with Taiwan in favor of China, some people think Tuvalu could follow suit. For more, our reporter Louise Watt spoke to Graham Smith, a senior fellow from the Department of Pacific Affairs at Australian National University.
What are the issues at stake in Tuvalu's elections?
Like most elections, they'll be fought largely on domestic issues, and you have 16 MPs, any of whom in theory could end up as the leader of the country after the election. So, yeah, and a country as small as Tuvalu, a lot of the stuff is, the politics is very personal, and a lot of it, of course, is extremely local. There's a bunch of issues, but of course the issue of who to recognise, China or Taiwan, has also become a bit of an issue in this election.
What are the chances that Tuvalu will switch diplomatic recognition to Beijing post-elections?
The chances seem to be fairly reasonable. It's hard to get a hold on it because we don't know exactly who will emerge as the leader. The most likely scenario for a change would be if a pro-China MP gets elected and he decides to push for that. And obviously, if he finds a majority of MPs, that's more than 8 out of the 16 in support of his position, then it will happen. It's very, very hard to say because we don't know exactly who's going to be in the parliament and who will come out as leader. Whenever Taiwan's foreign ministry comes out and says statements for no reason about we strongly value our relationship with Tuvalu, then that's often a good indicator that Taiwan is a little bit nervous about it as well.
Tuvalu is obviously a small country and doesn't punch above its weight on the world stage. So how important is it to Taiwan as an ally?
It still has as many UN votes as Australia does. So in many ways, it punches well above its weight at the United Nations. For Taiwan, I mean, the remaining number of allies are important in the sense that they have some people who will stand up for their interests or speak out for their interests at regional fora. The Pacific used to be a bit of a bastion for Taiwan. We're now down to 3 allies, possibly 2 after the election. It's important in many ways, more in symbolic terms, because obviously the countries left in Taiwan's column are increasingly the smallest and least influential, as your answer implies.
That was Graham Smith from Australian National University talking to Louise Wan. A Japanese court has sentenced a man to death for killing 36 people in an arson attack in 2019. Prosecutors charged Aoba Shinji with murder and arson after he used gasoline to set fire to Kyoto Animation Studio, sparking Japan's worst mass killing in almost 20 years. Over 30 others were injured in the blaze. Aoba claimed that the studio had stolen his ideas and that he couldn't be held responsible for his actions due to a mental disorder. The judge rejected his plea, ruling that he was fully competent. 2 colonial statues have been vandalized in Australia just before a contentious national holiday. A century-old statue of the British explorer James Cook was sawn off at the ankles, while a monument to Queen Victoria was defaced with red paint. January 26th, or Australia Day, marks the arrival of a British fleet in 1788 that founded New South Wales as a penal colony. Many Indigenous Australians and their supporters see the date as offensive, with some calling it Invasion Day. Protests are expected across the country on Friday. A record drought in the world's largest tropical rainforest is displacing communities and endangering local wildlife. Reese Ayers has the story.
Usually seen floating on water, this community of houseboats in the Amazon has been beached. The result of a record drought in the world's biggest tropical rainforest. It's a drought researchers say we should have seen coming.
We see a really, really strong message about the influence of global warming on this drought, and that's both in the present and in the future. So synthesizing our results, putting both observations and models together, we see that similar droughts to the one last year have become 10 times more likely for just the extremely low rainfall and 30 times more likely for the hot, dry conditions that resulted in low moisture in the soils.
Draining rivers, endangering local wildlife, and displacing entire communities. The drought has far-reaching effects and increases the risk of forest fires.
Together with the dry vegetation, which makes this fire seasons even more daring. I think we should be really worried with the health of the Amazon forest.
With the huge amount of greenhouse gases the Amazon absorbs, protecting it is considered a vital part of combating global climate change. But decades of deforestation have left large sections of the rainforest bare. Deforestation and climate change particularly impact indigenous communities in the Amazon. On Wednesday, Brazil's Agricultural Research Agency began an initiative to help communities reforest land. The initiative will teach Amazon communities how to collect and cultivate seeds from local tree species. Though with increasingly unpredictable weather conditions, restoring the rainforest will be no easy feat. Alex Chen and Reese Ayers for TaiwanPlus.
The government program is preserving fading art forms in Taiwan by getting mentors to train up a new generation of performers. Yu Lai has this story.
88-year-old Liao Chongzhi watches on as her student performs for her one last time. After 4 years of intense training, these young apprentices of Taiwan's traditional arts are graduating. It's part of a government program to preserve fading art forms, like Taiwanese opera, and train up a new generation of masters. And Liao has seen the art form and the culture around it change over the years.
一点点啊无好，伊就我来就甲你拍咯。啊，这是以前的时代嘛，大家教囡仔嘛拢用拍的嘛，吼。啊，即马呢是爱的教育，无法度。
The times have changed in many ways. In her day, Liao performed Taiwanese opera to survive. For today's students, however, they're mostly just interested in the culture. But becoming a master is still a hard-earned skill. Out of the 28 students who signed up for the program, only 13 are graduating. For Liao's apprentice Zheng Yunqian, this experience has been life-changing even off stage.
就是因为老师比较厉害的地方是，他不只是教你学艺，还会教你修心，还会教你做人。
Zheng says she plans to travel around the country after graduation to see how other opera troupes interpret their art. For her, the training never really ends. Her perseverance also gives her teacher another reason to continue the program.
每一国都有因国家的文化，这是歌戏是咱台湾国家的文化，是咱台湾土生土长的，阮就出来来教家己尽量有学的教出来安尼。
By laying a strong foundation, a new master will one day be ready to take up her mantle. Yujing Huang, Luffy Li, and Yuchen Lai for TaiwanPlus.
Thanks for joining us here on TaiwanPlus News this evening. Head on over to our website if you want to find more of our reports. Finally, groove along with the Jazz Plaza Festival happening in Cuba's capital, Havana. I'm Eric Gao, and we'll see you next time.